8countnews.com, Peter Zimbor here with one of the best trainers in New England, perhaps the best trainer in all of New England, Peter Manfredo Sr. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, and thanks for the compliment.
Peter, lots going on with your gym as of late. Let's start with Edwin Rodriguez, a prospect out of Worcester, Massachusetts, makes his national TV debut this Friday on ESPN against George Armenta. How's he looking in training?
He's looking pretty good. He's had over 100 rounds of sparring. I mean, he's totally prepared. He's in real good shape. He's just cutting the last few pounds right now. And Chico and myself really got him going for this fight.
The world or the nation will get to see him for the first time this week on ESPN, but for those who have followed his career since the beginning, there is a noticed improvement from his pro debut until now. He's losing a lot of the amateur characteristics that he had in the early goings of his pro career. What have you seen changing in him as of late?
Well, a lot of time, everybody uses the same thing. They say if they want to sit down on their punches. Yeah, but he's been sitting down on his punches a little bit more. And as you've seen tonight, I got him using maximum amount of leverage behind each shot. Maybe dropping the weight a little bit more to one side. Let him exaggerate a little bit in the gym. And then eventually, you know, with the course of the repetition, doing it over and over again, he'll be hitting with the maximum amount of leverage. And of course, with the speed, it'll produce a lot more power. So, he's getting down. He's starting to get rid of all that amateur, habits that he brought here, but it takes time.
Now, I asked him this question earlier when I spoke with him. He's fighting on ESPN this Friday. He has a Showtime date tentatively scheduled for late April, and he's looking to make the jump from prospect to contender. What is the timeline for him doing that, in your opinion?
Oh, I didn't even want you to tell him that he was fighting on Showtime, but
ESPN.com has it. They all have got it. It's public now.
I know it, but I don't know if he read it. But anyway, he knows now. I mean, it's a good timeline because he's got he'll have 14 fights this week, and he's not. We're not trying to protect him. We put him in pretty decent, and his manager Larry Army does a real good job at doing that, and his promoter Lou DiBella, fantastic job at doing that. We want to move him, but maybe by the beginning of next year or the mid part of next year or a year from now, we can get ready. He can have him close to 20-0, and then we'll make him take a shot.
Is there any other unbeaten prospects such as him out there, or maybe former title challengers or contenders out there that you think match up very well against Edwin that could give him that signature win he needs to really be considered for a title?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that can give him that signature win. I'm right off the top of my head, I'm not going to come up with it. That's not my job. It's the job of the matchmaker and the promoter. My job is to just, study film, study tapes, and prepare him for the fight. But he can match up against anybody. I just don't want them to throw him in too deep because he's only been a pro now for a little bit over 2 years. Then he had that little layoff with the injury that he had the surgery. So I just don't want to rush it. I don't want to be too cautious, but then I don't want to be too fast on moving him. And I'm sure Lou DiBella and his manager, they're thinking the same line because they don't just get him somebody. They'll bring him to me and they'll let me voice my opinion on what I think, which is big. We work together as a team, and then we go from there.
Another fighter that trains under your tutelage is Jesse Brinkley, famed for Season 1 of The Contender, coming off a big win on ESPN a few weeks ago against Curtis Stevens. He may find himself in a mandatory position to fight Lucian Bute at some point down the road. Tell us about his performance against Curtis Stevens. Must have been pleased with that, and how you think he fares against Bute.
Bute I don't like. He's slick. He's a southpaw. I don't know where I would even get the spawn. I'd probably bring in Boo Boo Andre, but the money has to be right because you got to fight him in Montreal. I mean, it's not a good fight. Styles make fights, and I just simply don't like that style. But if it's a mandatory thing, we'll do the best we can. We'll train him. We'll bring in the best sparring. I'll definitely prepare him. I mean, he was an underdog in his hometown. Teddy Atlas had him losing. More than 3/4 of the country had him losing against Curtis Stevens. And we didn't shock. I didn't have any problem with training for Curtis Stevens. We had a great game plan. I mean, I studied a lot of film on him. I seen that he had problems with movement, as everybody knows when he fought Andre Ward. And then he had was it Durrell? He's one of those Olympians. And then every time someone would jab at him, that was the thing. He had to step back and he wouldn't get set. So that's exactly what we worked on right from the beginning. A little bit of movement, a little bit of angles, and a lot of jabs and working behind the jabs. The thing with Curtis Stevens that he couldn't get too close. The first maybe minute and a half, if you look at the tape, he was a little too close and he got caught with a couple of shots. But then, I'd say just about 1:30 into the first round, he hit him with a good straight left right. And then when he came back to the corner, I told him that wasn't a bad round because I could see that he was starting to get that range out and he was starting to pump that jab. I told him he had to really go into overtime with that jab, really step it up with it, and he did. And he made the fight a lot easier.
And the reason I mentioned Lucian Bute is because that fight put him at number 2 in the IBF, and Bute has the IBF super middleweight title right now. A lot of the other 168-pounders tied up with the Showtime tournament, so that might be the most likely fight for him at the moment. Let's talk about your son, Peter Manfredo Jr. That same night that Jesse Brinkley defeated Curtis Stevens, your son on the opposite side of the country pounded out a unanimous decision over Matt Vanda. Have you gotten to see the tape, and what do you think of that fight?
I really didn't see much of the tape. I watched a little bit of it on YouTube, but I knew that he would be ready for him because, Vanda, is very tough, but he was a formidable opponent. But it was just what I was looking for because I knew if you use a lot of jabs on him, same thing with Peter. I had him shot for the fight. We both discussed it. I wasn't going to go with Jesse at first, but my son said, you got Jesse 8-9 wins in a row. And he kind of got a little bit, depressed when I told him that I was going to stay here. But then we were thinking about bringing in Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. I had talked to Eddie, and Eddie said he would, be more than happy to do the job. But, my son said, Dad, you just get me ready for it. I know what I got to do. I should beat this guy, and I got him real sharp. And again, he worked behind the jab. He was very busy. I got him in real good shape. He got down to 160. He pushed himself. And at 160, we can make a lot of noise. And I think we can make some money, and we can make some noise and become maybe a champion of the world.
You mentioned Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, and when you mention that name, what rings a bell to me with you and him is prior to the Joey Spina-Manfredo fight. He was working with Joey Spina, and you and him had a little jaw-jacking going on, almost some physical altercations at press conferences.
Let me tell you something. I love Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. And me and him, we sold more tickets that night. My dad, he'll say that. But no, Eddie's a great guy. He's a great trainer. Look at the job he's doing with Chad Dawson. Eddie's got a lot of good guys over there, and he really knows what he's doing. And no, me and Eddie are real good friends. We'll always be friends. And, we're together trying to do one thing, become successful in the game and try to step up there with the guys like Roach and the Mayweathers and Floyd and Roger. Get mentioned with them. And then, you're an elite level coach. But there's a lot of good coaches out there, and I think Eddie Mustafa Muhammad is one of them.
Before I let you go, I know you've got a lot of great pros in the gym we've talked about, also some good amateurs making noise in the regional Golden Gloves and maybe the national Golden Gloves. Talk about that for us.
I think I have one of the best amateurs in the country. I don't think I actually know. His name is Toka Khan Clary. At 16 last year, he went to the National Golden Gloves, won 4 fights in a row, and lost to Rodriguez in the finals. I thought he won the fight. He kind of busted the kid Rodriguez up, but they didn't know who he was. And he lost. He won the silver medal. But this year, he's already won the New Englands. He's going to be headed to Lake Placid. He just won the New England Golden Gloves. He's going to be headed to Little Rock, Arkansas. So he's 17. He's going to be busted on the scene. He's been doing a lot of sparring. He spars with professionals and amateurs. I bring in everybody at between 125 and 150. I don't hold back. I let him get in there with real good guys. I really would like to take him out to the West Coast to Wild Card because that's the top gym, and let my friend Freddie Roach take a look at him because he's the master, and he'll tell me exactly what I have to do. I'll learn more there, but I haven't had the opportunity right now. It's money. It's it's paying for the trip for both of us. It's putting us up, and right now, the financial situation in the country doesn't call for it here. But that's my plan with him, to eventually get him out to the West Coast and let Freddie, take a look at him and critique the work that I've done with him.
Well, Peter, I thank you so much for joining us for this interview. Best of luck with everything you've got going on.
Pete, you're the best. Thank you very much.
It's Peter Manfredo Sr. joining us here on 8countnews.com.